Welcome to Green Giants, Titans of Renewable Energy, the podcast where insights and innovation meet. Every episode, we dive into conversations with industry leaders, experts, and change makers, bringing you the stories and ideas in the renewable energy sector that shape our world. And now, let's jump into today's episode with your host, Wes Ashworth. Welcome back to Green Giants, Titans of Renewable Energy. Today, we're joined by Justin Rangooni, President and CEO of Energy Storage Canada. Justin has spent more than a decade at the intersection of law, policy, and clean energy. And since stepping into his leadership role in 2019, he has helped turn Energy Storage Canada into the national voice of this rapidly growing sector. In today's conversation, we'll explore the role of storage in Canada's energy transition, the challenges of supply chains, and the opportunities beyond lithium batteries. We'll also look ahead to where the sector is headed and what gives Justin hope about the future of the grid. Justin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much for the invitation. Happy to be here. Big fan of your podcast, so it's an honor. So look forward to our discussion.
Absolutely. You know, you're a fun, energetic guy, so no doubt we'll have a good time and learn a lot of good stuff along the way too. Starting out just kind of always like your personal path and journey. So what drew you into the energy space? How did your journey bring you to Energy Storage Canada?
Okay, so it's kind of a bit of a journey. So it's funny, and it's like anyone's career is you kind of just like follow whatever path. You don't think you're going to end up here. So as you mentioned, like I am a lawyer, so called to the bar way back when, 2004. Thought, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer rest of my career. Great, that's fantastic. But a lot of my friends who I grew up with were working in government at the time for the Ontario government, so the Dalton McGuinty government, and they said, hey, you're a lawyer now. We need a lawyer, and why don't you come on over? So I went over there. Thought it'd be kind of fun. Why not? Interesting part of my career, and worked for Honorable Jerry Phillips as a Minister of Government Services. So we're not even in energy yet. This is government services, dealing with Public Service Act, Whistleblower Protection, Condo Act, what have you. And then he got shuffled to energy. And so I went with him and a few others, and now I'm in the energy world. Totally not thinking about it, didn't plan of it, and then you kind of get wrapped into it. You start looking the file, you start learning. It's a complicated file, so like you start learning. And then as he basically retired, the option was to go elsewhere. And then that next step was to work in the renewable energy for CANWE at the time it was called, the Canadian Wind Energy Association. Mm-hmm. So I was doing policy work for them for a few years. And then from there, I actually went over to the Electricity Distributors Association, again, still with energy, working with the utilities and the LDCs of the province. And I was there for about 7 years. I always joke those were 7 years. I had 3 kids, so that was my, building the family up during that time. And then from there, I knew I wanted to I liked the association world, and I knew I wanted to kind of be creative, have that creativity, see what I can do. And then this job opened up at Energy Storage Canada in 2019, and I was honored to get it. And so here I am. So from starting as a lawyer, thinking I'm going to do who knows what kind of law, down to now being in the association world. So it's always a fun journey where you look back where your career takes you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool story. And so many paths are exactly like that, right? And I think it's encouraging to like young professionals that want to have it all laid out. And I'm going to do exactly this. It's like, yeah, we'll see. Like check back in 15, 20 years. We'll see where you're at. Exactly. Usually it's a winding road, but we end up where we're supposed to be. So that's cool. As I mentioned, so you've held roles across policy, government relations, and advocacy in a number of organizations in the energy sectors you just told in your story there. How have those experiences shaped how you lead and advocate today? Like, how does that show up in your work every day?
No, I think it's good. So I think I was lucky enough, again, having that legal background, but then working in government. So I knew what the other side in government was. Yeah. And so when I was outside of government, I kind of understood the pressures, what they're looking for, getting to the point, just like trying to speak the government's language or the system operator or the regulator's language. So I knew that going in. So as I was on the other side working with members in the clean energy space, I was able to say, okay, what are our asks? How do we package it properly so they can understand it? And again, that was probably the biggest takeaway from my career, is understanding how to package the advocacy ask to meet what's needed at the time and then achieve some results. So, we've been successful at ESC. When I first started in 2019, I'm sure we'll talk about this too, the journey at energy storage, but really it was all about like pilot projects and demonstration projects. You're like 5 years away from being 5 years away. And it was like, no, we're ready now. So let's figure out a way how we could package the information to so we're ready and how it meets your objectives.
Makes a lot of sense. And you kind of hear how those lessons inform your leadership style today and just those different pieces, how they play in. So that's really cool. We'll dig into this. So for listeners maybe unfamiliar with Energy Storage Canada, give us a big picture. What does the organization do and why does it matter right now?
Okay, so we are the voice of the sector. We do this 24/7, 365 days a year. We only focus on energy storage technologies. So most people think of batteries, and that's right. Yeah, batteries most prevalent right now. People understand it because they have phones.
Yeah.
When you're charging up the phone, same kind of concept. It's the same technology. That lithium to ion technology in your phone is basically the same as what's being put in utility batteries right now. But there's also other forms of energy storage. There's pump storage, which takes the water up and holds it until it's needed. And there's one on Niagara Falls since the 1950s or 60s.
Yeah.
Now there's newer technologies coming to it. There's compressed air, which is using like salt caverns to hold compressed air before being released to throw turbines. There's thermal storage. There's new battery chemistries, which are exciting. You can go on the periodic table, pick some elements and say, okay, is that a battery? Because that's what's happening. So you got zinc base, you got vanadium base, you got sodium base, and that's where it's really exciting. And all these different energy storage technologies do different things. They can be of different sizes. They can hold for seconds the energy to days, weeks, months, seasons, what have you. Again, they can be connected big scale, connected to the transmission session, a little bit smaller to the distribution. They could be at your house or at your business. Even your car, your electric vehicle, if you have one, which I do, love driving it. Everyone should have at least one. It's like a battery for your house, basically. And that's where the technology is going. So we represent all those things. So our members, 100 plus, we've grown across the country. Really, it's every energy type of company and everything in between that you can imagine. And that's what makes the space exciting. It's not just a certain segment. It's everybody. If you're interested in energy storage, we want you to be a member. And so we can keep pushing it in every province, in every territory, in every municipality in Canada.
I love energy storage for that reason. So it connects all of the different avenues and technologies and all the different things. It ties kind of to all of it. And it's a clear snapshot that you just painted. And the reason why it's important, like there's so many different styles, different technologies, different uses, different things coming out. The education piece, connecting those folks, really, really important. It's obviously very important work that you're doing. Now that we kind of understand a little bit of the background, so your personal journey, the role of Energy Storage Canada, we'll zoom out a little bit to bigger picture, look at how storage fits into Canada's rapidly evolving energy system. So the energy system's in a period of historic transformation. How is energy storage positioned in that shift from your perspective?
Okay, so we look at energy storage as being like the linchpin or at the center of the current and future energy system. It supports our system now in optimizing, increasing reliability and flexibility, particularly as many of our electricity grids look at substantial expansions to meet growing demand and reduce the carbon output of the grids. And all that changes makes the reliability and multitasking of energy storage assets absolutely essential to ensuring we have the energy we need and that it's affordable, reliable for ratepayers. And that's the key. We look at energy storage as being the center of it all. You can have whatever supply mix the province wants. You could be the system operator or the regulator might have certain objectives they're trying to achieve. We believe energy storage is at the center of all that, and you need it to achieve those goals.
Yeah, it really shows how storage has moved from that side player to a core part of the grid. And kind of what I was saying too, of just it connects everything, like all those technologies, sort of like storage is right at the center of it. And storage, often described maybe as a Swiss Army knife for the grid, and that same reason. Right. What does that mean in practice? Like, what does that mean to you?
Okay, so it's Swiss Army knife. Annette Verschoon, the CEO of Enerstor, which helped build the Oneida project, always called it energy storage is like bacon, like it goes with everything. So there's different ways to look at it, but essentially the same thing, that it just works. So energy storage, if you take a step back, is any technology or process that captures energy when it's not needed and stores it for later use, eventually discharging it. Again, that could be batteries, that could be compressed air, thermal storage, pump storage, what have you. So energy storage, we believe, is complementary to all technology types, even nuclear and gas. You think wind and solar right now, which does such a great job, but also helps optimize water power, nuclear, gas, what have you. So energy storage supports reliability, sustainability, but most importantly, affordability of our resource. And it's a multi-service grid asset. And that's where that Swiss Army knife kind of comes in. Like a multi-tool, it can provide a range of services to electricity grid, which we in the industry like to call value stacking. So it can do all of these certain things. And the impact that means we're able to invest in a single asset, whatever the energy storage technologies, that can meet a range of needs, even if those needs change and evolve in the future. That's really the exciting thing about energy storage being that Swiss Army knife. You might get it, you might install it for one reason, and then something else pops up, then you realize, oh, I can actually use that energy storage resource for that now.
The vivid way of putting it. I love the Swiss Army knife comparison, and bacon, it goes with everything. What misconceptions or outdated assumptions do you encounter most often about energy storage? And I'd love to just hear your perspective on those.
Yeah, there's certain things. So I think what we face with those right now is that, energy storage is different than a generation asset. So it's different than say wind or solar or hydro, what have you. It optimizes those assets really well. Like it will store that energy from those sources, but it's different. It's not a generator and it's not a load. It's something kind of in between or very unique. But again, it helps address those intermittency issues with renewables. But the functionality of storage is much greater. Another myth that comes out is like energy storage is experimental. It's still like a science fair project, like what we faced, like what I kind of faced back in 2019. The industry is still relatively new compared to others. Applying technologies like lithium in different ways than before is kind of new, but they've actually been around for a long time. Like we talked about the pump storage, Niagara Falls has actually been around for almost 50, 60 years. But I think the concept is that it's providing value right now in Canada, in the US, in Europe, all over the world. So that's where we kind of say this is ready now. And more technologies of energy storage are coming down the pipe. So it's ready now. And then the last one probably is that, it's still too expensive. The economics don't work. Well, actually, that one's been proven false in the latest Ontario procurement, where energy storage actually came in much cheaper than gas expansion. So it shows energy storage is competitive right now.
Yeah, it's important to clear those up. And again, it changes and evolves so fast too. Like you said, like some may be true in 2019, not true today. And so clearing those up really helps listeners understand what storage actually is and isn't. One of those things too, just in addition to that, you always kind of hear around it is just safety, right? And safety is always a major public concern. How do you address those fears around battery fires and toxicity? You hear it, maybe you're hearing it less now, but how do you continue to address that?
And our members face that, especially as they're going to a new community that maybe doesn't have energy storage already there. Like it's a legitimate question. We understand it. We kind of take different approaches of it. So our primary approach to addressing these fears is to provide people with the best, most reliable information we can from the experts, like fire safety experts. Study and manage these incidents day to day. We're happy to share high-level answers. For instance, no studies to date have shown toxicity related to battery fires more than any other structure fire, like any other normal fire outside the immediate area, meaning it's not spreading for miles. Like it is contained to that battery cell. But as the next step, if people want to dig into the details of the data, we connect them directly with the experts who work on this actively on active fire suppression systems, setting the standards for fire safety, and doing the studies of incidents around the world to ensure we're constantly improving. Such groups as Energy Safety Response Group and Hillier, which are members of and a lot of them are ex-firefighters too, do this. So, you can trust their expertise, which I think is really important. And we also tried to tell them, like, the technology isn't new. Like if you're all having your phones with your Android or iPhone, what have you, that technology is the same. So it's not something totally foreign to you, even if it's the first time a project's being proposed in your area.
I like that. I like the perspective. And it's cool, the firefighter being a part of that. You're like, okay, I trust that individual.
Exactly.
For sure.
You got to trust the firefighter. Exactly.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's one of those things too. It's just like when it's framed up in a very isolated way, right? Like you could make anything seem dangerous. Those that still have gasoline cars, you drive around with a tank of gasoline, like on you going 70 miles an hour. Buy a tanker truck, on the interstate. Like, there's those things that, there are dangers in the wrong circumstances, but obviously the safety measures are there. It is a very safe technology. And so I always want to get that safety message out there as much as we can.
Right.
Another topic, can you walk us through what happens when a grid scale storage project is proposed in a community? And maybe this ties into how they feel about safety and all those sort of things, but how are local stakeholders brought in, and just what's that process look like?
Yeah, and so like our members, they really follow best practices. They're like, some of them are really excellent at this, and they bring the community in really early on. If it's the municipal council, it's ratepayer groups, it's and what they do is, they let them know that they're here. They'll set up open houses or community workshops. They'll have websites or Facebook groups, basically just saying, here we are, here's all the plans, here's what the project's going to look like, here's the benefits of the energy storage project, and we're here to answer your questions. And they take time. Some of these open houses might go on for hours, and they might have that series of them. But the best developers that are our members will be there all the time, answer each of the questions. They might answer the same question numerous times, but they're going to do this. And what's key, again, back on your safety question, which is one of the preeminent questions that people get is, they bring in the experts. So they'll bring in the ex-firefighters or the safety experts. They'll bring them to the councils to talk to them and just say, listen, ask all the questions. Here are the experts. You may not want to listen to the developer. You may not even listen to the association. But here's an expert who deals with this that you can address. The developer will also kind of bring in maybe the local politician in the area to kind of say, hey, won't you talk about the benefits of doing this, or the system operator to kind of say, like, why is this needed? So again, just providing that fact-based information and understanding this is a new project in this area. They're going to have concerns, they're going to have questions, and just take the time to answer it. Because I think when people see that you bring the experts, I think people get much more comfortable with it. And eventually, as more of these projects get built now, since we have about like 3,000 megawatts in Ontario itself being built by the end of the decade, probably even more, people are going to start to say, you can point to other jurisdictions and say, well, the municipality next door, they got one. They've been having it for like a year. It's great. So I think that's where you kind of bring everyone along. I think that's the key message.
Yeah, it's useful perspective. And that's a common thread I hear a lot, is just going to those communities really early, obviously hearing them out, being there with them, really talking through the concerns, bringing the experts, not shying away from questions, all really good stuff, and useful just in how community engagement actually plays out. So we've explored how storage is being deployed on the grid and in communities. I want to shift to supply chains behind those projects, from Canada's critical minerals to the challenge of building a full manufacturing ecosystem. So you've been vocal about the gap between Canada's resource extraction and its storage manufacturing. What's missing in the middle?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we're hearing a lot in the media from the federal government, provincial government saying, we have critical minerals, we have battery critical minerals, lithium, graphite, for instance, and we want to get that out in the world. And those are key components of a battery energy storage system we're looking at. But the fact is, globally, certain countries like China have had such a head start in terms of refining those minerals to produce the battery cells. So that's just the reality of the situation, that China and other countries are ahead right now. But Canada does have a competitive advantage with the critical minerals. So what's really missing, I guess, is kind of like that midstream, or prioritizing where Canada's competitive advantage is. And, that could be permitting and approval process of critical mining projects, which we're seeing federally through the Major Projects Office. So the opportunity for quick wins to see projects moving now. And I think everyone's on board with doing that. So it's just kind of figuring out how best is to get the minerals out of the ground safely, with proper consultation with Indigenous communities or the community that is housing the minerals, and what is the best way to move those along the supply chain. Is there things that Canada can do in terms of refining those minerals? Or is it something where we do have to kind of send it out, but that's good for business of the mining companies in Canada? So really it's just figuring out what Canada's competitive advantage is, and really what's the plan? Where do we want to focus in on this battery supply chain?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense and paints a pretty clear picture obviously the raw materials are there, or minerals are there. It's just a matter of kind of building those things out, and time too. People often
Yes.
forget that. They think it just magically evolves instantly.
That's right.
It's like,
Yes.
no, some other countries have a big head start. That's why they're a little further along. Like, give it some time. Let it progress. What would it take for Canada to become a true energy storage manufacturing hub?
No, and that's a great question too. And we've been thinking a lot about that. And when we speak with our US counterparts or European counterparts, or even our members who come from across the globe, we talk about
Yeah,
that. And they would love to have as much made in Canada as possible for talking about batteries. Let's talk about battery energy storage because that's really the topic du jour. So they would
yeah,
love to use as much they can get from Canada. So again, it goes back to that question of where is our competitive advantage on the supply chain? So critical minerals, but it could also be things like recycling at the end too, but also assembling, using construction, what have you. So I think it's just a matter of the governments with us and our members figuring out where best is it. And most importantly, I think we're getting to a question is like, where's our best partners now to do it?
yeah,
We know China has that head start. We used to have a really great relationship with the US. We hope again we will.
yeah.
But
Same.
are we comfortable enough to really put all our eggs in one basket with our neighbor to the south? Or should we start looking G7 type countries or other friendlier countries and say, well, maybe we can find something that works here where we're sending our minerals to be refined in another country and it comes back here, a little bit of an ecosystem. So a lot of the geopolitics really is kind of big question mark because like, who can we trust right now? Who do we want to work with? And that changes day by day, tweet by
Yeah,
tweet
yeah.
from the president in the South.
Right. Yeah. No. No. Absolutely. And the more you hear, I think that the one of those commenters that continue comes up is just the importance of partnerships, and you mentioned that as well too, and just knowing where those are going to come from. I think they are critically important, no matter what that is. But it really does start to tell a story and kind of see where it's all headed. I do want to bring in Indigenous and First Nations communities. How can they be meaningfully included in this emerging value chain?
Yep. From ESC's point of view, it's a must. It's not a nice to have. It's not it'd be really great to console. No, it's
Yeah.
a must. Like, and in development, if you're looking at critical minerals, if you're looking at the entire supply chain, it's a must to bring Indigenous and First Nation communities involved. And what's really a success and a good news story with energy storage is over the last 3 years, the ISO has run 2 procurements for about 2,800 megawatts of storage, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And in the past procurement window, all but one had Indigenous equity of 50% or more. And that's
Yeah.
significant because
Yeah.
that didn't used to be. So yeah, imagine it. Almost every project in Ontario right now with storage has a major Indigenous community equity component. So in
Yeah.
LT1, there were 10 projects for about 1,800 megawatts. Again, all but one had about 50% more. In the expedited LT1, 15 projects for 930 megawatts. Almost all of them, again, had Indigenous equity participation. So these procurements are important for system reliability and serves an opportunity for economic reconciliation with Indigenous nations when done correctly. So this is built on the National Benefits Sharing Framework to facilitate greater Indigenous equity ownership in major infrastructure, natural resources, and clean energy projects. And this should include following through on commitments made onto the doubling of the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. So this, we think, storage and what we've seen is a great example of what needs to be done with almost all energy infrastructure projects going forward.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I appreciate the emphasis on just partnership and equity and changing the narrative from stakeholder just really to co-owner and the important work that's being done there. Just thinking about some other just policy regulatory moves. What are some of those top ones you'd like to see to accelerate a secure, ethical supply chain?
Yeah, I think it's just like, let's just get the projects moving here. So we know the good work of the major project office is getting off the ground, identifying those major projects. So there are critical mineral projects or battery supply chain projects in there. Okay, let's get those going. Let's see where that kind of leads us. But also moving forward on a major investment tax credit, so we call them ITCs, that support clean energy and tech, like the clean energy tag, the clean electricity one, the clean technology manufacturing. They're all out there, and some are some are being implemented and already showing benefit. Others still need to be passed. So we hope that the budget will see that as well. We'll see some finally we're going to wrap it all up and have all these ITCs providing value for clean energy projects, and looking to evolve the eligible list of technologies. So are there new energy storage projects like thermal energy storage, which can be included in these ITCs, or things like critical battery critical mineral mine development as well. So these are a lot of really good ideas out there. We have the frameworks in place. It's just a matter of evolving it and really just getting down to business, getting projects moving in Canada.
It would be good. Get them moving. I think that's definitely the nice underlying message there. And gives a clear sense of just, as we talk through all this, what it takes to build a robust supply chain. I do want to broaden the lens a bit and just talk about innovation beyond lithium ion and some of the emerging technologies that could redefine storage in the years ahead. You've started to mention a couple there as we've gotten into it. So lithium ion, as we know, dominates the conversation. But what other technologies are you excited about? Again, you've already touched on a few, but I'll let you just expand on those and tell us a bit about those.
Oh, sure. Listen, in Energy Storage Canada, we're excited about all the energy storage technologies that are coming down the pipe. We have a dedicated group called the long duration energy storage. And that's really what the new era of energy storage is. So if we take a step back, lithium batteries have been procured now, and you're seeing in other provinces as well, in British Columbia, Nova Scotia, and providing value in Alberta too. Provides about 4 hours. They'll hold 4 hours of energy. And then that's what the batteries right now are being configured for. But the new technologies, including, even lithium is being evolved, technology advanced as well, can hold things longer for longer hours. 8+ hours is kind of where we draw the line on what do we call a long duration energy storage technology. Well, I think that holds energy for 8 hours plus. So we're looking at different battery chemistries. So we're looking at sodium, we're looking at zinc, vanadium, other different battery chemistries. You're looking at what we talked about, that we said about the compressed air using pump storage projects. You're looking at thermal energy storage, and supercapacitors could even be one down the road. It really gets exciting as people started really looking at this and saying, well, this can work right now. So we're excited about them all.
Yeah, I love it. I think it is one of the most exciting areas there is. Just because it is so broad. There's so many different solutions and technologies, and you said just from batteries kind of get out the periodic table, but then also just some of the other thermal storage components, and it's cool. It's a fun evolving space. It's fun to track it and watch it and just see all the things coming. I see this a lot in the podcast. It's just like the focus is an and, not an or. It's not just like, oh, this one little technology is going to win all. It's an and. We need all of it. They all have kind of different applications, and you need it all to develop and happen. So refreshing. Always a good reminder. There's more than one path to decarbonization and winning when it comes to storage. How do you explain? So you touched on their long duration energy storage. Maybe it is just as simple as you've laid it out. But if there are any other things to add there in terms of how you explain it to someone unfamiliar with it?
No, that's a great question too. So like long duration energy storage that we mentioned is something that can hold the energy for longer than 4 hours now than what we're seeing with the lithium batteries. And that can take many forms. So you can hold the potential for energy. Like if we look at pump storage, like the project that TC Energy is proposing in Meaford, Ontario, basically saying it's creating a reservoir that's going to draw water up and hold that water. And that water potential that's held up is potential energy, because when it's needed, it will be released and brought down, spin some generators, and create energy. So that could be held for like months, really, if you think about weeks, months, seasons. So we've got to think of it that way. Sometimes they're really big projects like a pump storage project. Sometimes maybe the batteries, the new thermal batteries, they might be a little bit smaller, but they can pack more punch. So it's really about what that energy storage can hold. How much energy can that hold? And that's really what long duration is about. And in its name, it's holding energy for long durations. So that's how you probably explain to somebody unfamiliar with it.
Yeah. And what are some of the most, I guess, creative or unexpected use cases for storage that you're seeing?
Well, I think it's like expanding. So right now, I think we all understand the need for energy storage to help with meeting peak demand needs in Canada. So it's kind of smooth out those peaks. You're gonna if you have an energy source that's a bit intermittent, like wind or solar, so the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining at a certain time, you need some energy. that energy storage can now play a role to fill that gap. Or when the wind's blowing and the sun's shining, but you don't necessarily need that energy, well, now you can store it with energy storage technology. So that's the most
Yeah.
common use that we're seeing now. But you're starting to see more with thermal storage, actually kind of capturing energy to be used in industrial processes or for heater cooling. So Enwave in Toronto has a well project, which just won an award at our conference, which your
Yeah.
viewers could take a look at and find out more. It's a good example of something that's a bit more unique. But also another one that we hope to really see coming down is with our utility members, or local distribution companies, or distribution members across the country, looking at energy storage as a way to kind of defer investments in the traditional poles and wires. So as
Yeah.
their load increases and they got to bring electricity to more of their customers, well, instead of necessarily building more expensive poles and wires, maybe there's energy storage solutions which can make better use and hold that energy and then release it when it's needed. So it's just another capital deferment, or a way to really save money for ratepayers, which is a kind of a exciting creative use of it, which is coming down. And you can look around the globe. My goodness, there's so many examples that keep popping up. I think there's a
Yeah.
massive sand battery in Finland that went online.
Mhm.
Like, there's so many that are just unique technologies that are going on. And I'm sure next year at this time, they'll be like, oh, did you see that example in such and such
Right.
jurisdiction, how they're using energy storage? Oh, that's really, didn't think that could happen. So again, it's
Yeah.
a very exciting space.
I agree. I think, and those that are entering the space, just from the talent landscape too, it's one of the most exciting places you can be in, just because all that is coming. And you're right, just like this new technology or new use or something comes up, and you read about it, you're like, oh, that's really really cool. I hadn't heard about that. But those use cases really broaden how we imagine storage, and it's neat to see. So. Kind of thinking through all that, we've gone through sort of the technology. That's one piece of the puzzle. For these solutions to thrive, the market rules and revenue models have to keep pace. And so let's turn to value stacking market design. You briefly hit on that for a second earlier as we talked, but what is value stacking in energy storage, and why is it crucial to success?
Yeah, I think it's crucial for not in project success, but really anyone.
Yeah.
You could look at it from the system operator's perspective, the government's, the regulator, the developer, the community's perspective. Really, it's about using that resource now for more than what you just initially procured it for. So Alberta's doing a great job right now. So they went through a long restructured energy market kind of process. Our own policy advisor, Robert Tremblay, was there on every stakeholder session, waving the flag for storage, saying, listen, this is an important tool that can be utilized to meet Alberta's energy needs. And there was a lot of talk about the value stacking.
Yeah.
So without going into much detail, we know about the capacity importance, which we talked about, optimizing the generation assets. But energy storage can also provide all these really important system operator tools like frequency regulation, voltage reduction, even other forms of arbitrage. And then if you can start placing value on these pieces, well, then you start to have that value stacking. So Alberta's really doing a good job looking at that and saying, well, we can do fast frequency. That's great. Well, you could also provide capacity and arbitrage. Well, that's great. Well, we need some other things for like a backup or emergency. Maybe there's a value there. So they're starting to do that as well. So, we want to see that everywhere as well. You have these assets, really maximize what its uses for.
Yeah, no, you've broken it down in a way that kind of demystifies it, makes it simple, and you really do see the importance of that. Thinking about just market rules, how should market rules evolve just to fully unlock the value of storage assets?
Another great question. So I think a lot of it's like coordination.
Yeah.
So if we look at exploring utility modernization structures that would support improved transmission, distribution governance models, protocols for the coordination of resource planning, and the procurement of local supply through distribution level markets is a great one. Let's have everybody talking who's procuring energy or who uses energy, and seeing where you can use storage. So it could be used for the system operator, it could be used for the utility. That same resources can do those different things. So prioritizing the integration of energy storage, or even on the distribution level, which we call DERs, or distributed energy resources, in the wholesale market that the ISO and the system operators run, to the establishment of clear timelines for the design and implementation of these DR streams, is a great example in ISO's enabling resource program, which is looking at that. Is how do we change the market rules? How do we make better use so the entire system is using this? So if you can make that in tandem with existing procurement timelines, you could have a great enhanced storage design model. And again, I'd probably look at Alberta with their REM model. Like, that was really good about finding the best way to enable energy storage from utility scale down to the distribution sides.
Yeah.
Coordination is key.
Coordination is key. Now, and you kind of see where that promise then starts meeting reality, and as its market rules adapt, and it really does enable the best technology to get built and get out there. So I always like hearing that sort of stuff. Thinking about this, you mentioned sort of outside of Canada, any other global models or regions? You mentioned Alberta as well. You think Canada should look to for inspiration?
Good. That's good. And so last week we had our annual conference. It was our 10th annual conference. So we actually had speakers from the European Union. We had speakers from the US. Our members obviously come across the globe, China, India, the US, whatever country you could pick. I'm sure they were there.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's inspiration. You can find ways that the European Union is using energy storage. You can look at ways that the US is looking at ways of energy storage. But what the great thing now is, you look at jurisdictions in Canada, it's Alberta, it's Ontario, it's out east, they're also looking at us.
Yeah.
They're saying, well, how did you do it? Well, how are you utilizing it? So it's really exciting to see that we don't necessarily have to always point to a U.S. jurisdiction. Like in the beginning, we would say, oh, look what California or New York or Texas is doing.
Right.
So Canada, feel comfortable. There's other jurisdictions doing that. Now it's like, hey, we're also doing that too. And now in Ontario, a great example is, and the Minister of Energy, Stephen Litchie, kind of announced this basically at our conference, is that, next year you're going to see what we call a long lead time procurement in Ontario, which is for those LDES, long duration energy storage technologies. So that'll be one of the first globally, really, first in Canada, but really first globally, that one of the first is going to be saying, we're going to procure X amount of megawatts for these certain types of technologies. So now the other jurisdictions around the world are starting to pay notice and say, well, what are you doing over there, Canada? That little Canada? What are you doing over there? That's really exciting. So they're looking at us for inspiration.
Yeah, that's awesome. The comparative lens is helpful. And I think just seeing what's worked elsewhere gives us both cautionary lessons and new ideas to borrow. And it's cool that you guys are starting to be like, oh, what's Canada doing? They're leading the way in a lot of areas there. So it's neat. And I think that's the cool thing about it is we all come together and kind of look at this. Energy affects everybody, every nation in the world. And if there's a lot more partnerships, a lot more coming together, idea sharing, we can get a lot more done. So, hold out hope that continues to happen. So with technical policy landscape sort of mapped out, let's look ahead to the near future, the developments that matter most, the myths that need retiring. We touch on a couple of those, reasons to feel hopeful about the grid. I think that's always important. What are the big developments on your radar for the next 12 to 24 months, or you can go further than that if you want to as well?
Oh, sure. No, I think it's basically looking at whatever jurisdiction you look at. So a lot of the provinces right now have targets. So British Columbia has a target, Nova Scotia has a target, Ontario has new targets to meet for their capacity needs. So it's really exciting to see what processes they're going to be taking. What kind of energy storage technologies are looking to procure in the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah.
It's also exciting is now we can start to see how Alberta, with all their months and months of consultations, is now they're going to start to implement. Well, what's that going to look like for energy storage in their kind of renewed energy market space? That's exciting too. But also provinces like Saskatchewan, which is just getting started in energy storage.
Yeah.
Well, what path are we going to work with them on to figure out how best to engage with energy storage? And I think the big development you'll see in addition to long lead time and LDES technologies starting to be more visible is like on the distribution side. So we call those DERs again. I started seeing a lot more focus on that because it's a bit of an untapped potential right now, especially as demand needs are coming. And supply challenges could be, people are planning for that. So why not look at this DERs on the distribution side of things to see, can that help meet the needs? So those are, I think, are coming in the next little while, which will be really exciting for the entire sector.
Yeah, no, agreed. It helps us just map out where we should be watching closely. And it's cool. You just see that there's real momentum there. What do you hope the Canadian public better understands about energy storage by this time, let's say next year?
Oh, that's really good. So I think by this time next year, you'll see more projects operating, which is exciting. So I think the Canadian public, hopefully by then, we'll start to see is, oh, yeah, I know those projects. Oh, yeah, I drive by that. I see it. Looks good. Looks great over there. and maybe like even the governments, the system operators, and the association is going to do this job. We're going to trumpet all the exciting milestones and success stories of our project. So it's just about everyone getting aboard and just saying, yeah, these things are really working. They're helping keep the lights on at affordable rates. So it's just like energy storage just becomes part of that mainstream when they think of energy, that they'll understand, well, energy storage, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, if you can do it, that makes sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a compelling vision, that's just mainstream, is accepted, and just part of the just normal way we think about energy and life. So I love that. If there's one myth you could permanently retire about storage, what would it be?
And that's not a science experiment, but it's ready now. Like this is, you want to do your due diligence in some provinces and jurisdictions to make sure you're comfortable. That's great, but it's happening globally. This thing is providing value right now. It's helping to keep the lights on, and it's doing it at affordable rates. And it's reliable. It's what you need now. I think it was just like, it's ready now. You can be confident to move forward on procuring or enabling or installing all types of forms of energy storage because it's available right now and ready now.
Yeah, it's a good one, and I think a myth definitely worth killing off. Once people see through it, the rest of the conversation really does open up. It's here, not a science experiment. I like that.
Yes.
What gives you the most hope about the future of the grid?
So what I think most hope is that I think probably is that the public, for the most part, is becoming a bit more aware of it. Because the exciting thing about it is if you're using electricity in your home or your apartment or your business, I think you're going to become more of instead of a consumer of the energy, hopefully, I think you're going to become more of a prosumer. That if you have an electric vehicle, if you have smart thermostats, or if there's other ways that you can start to understand and control your electricity use, I think you're going to start to really understand better what's more efficient. And you can actually talk to the decision makers now and saying, listen, here's what I want to have in my house or in my neighborhood or my jurisdiction. So I think that's what gives most hope. It's not so much of a centralized system that starts to be broken down. So I think that gives me hope. And again, it's quite exciting to think about.
No, I think that does give us a good sense of optimism and possibility. I like the way you phrase that, just a prosumer. I think that's what you said. But I think too, as you look at the general public, I think really wanting to be a more kind of informed consumer, knowing what's happening, what's going on, and we want more control, and we want, so I think that trend will obviously go along with that as well too. As the technology gets better, deployment gets better, acceptance gets even more, that it's sort of naturally into like the way we're leaning anyways too. So agreed. A lot of hope there. A few questions as we get closer. What's the part of your work at Energy Storage Canada that brings you the most joy?
Well, I think it's working with my team. So we just did our conference. So we had the team did a fantastic job. We all kind of came together, because we're scattered across the country. So it was nice to bring everyone together, but the team's fantastic. So I'll give a shout out to, our VP, Leon King, our Senior Director, Andrew Theo, our person out in BC, Michelle Mongol. We mentioned Robert out in Alberta. We got our membership lead, Jamie George, and we have our new communications coordinator, Liz Cook. They're all fantastic. So, that's the best part of the job, is working with them.
Yeah, always, it comes down to the people. So coming out of that conference, what was your favorite part, biggest takeaway? What was memorable for you?
Well, it's just like the optimism. Like, it's just like, okay, we're here and it's going to get bigger. I like that idea. So as an association, we want the association to be bigger. We want the sector to be bigger. So it's just that kind of thing that we're just getting started. And, we've seen a lot of momentum the last few years, but geez, there's so much more that's coming, which is really exciting.
It is. It's, as you said, it's here. It's established, but it's also still early on. There's still so much more to go, which is that's the exciting part, right? Who or what inspires you to keep pushing forward in this space?
Oh, that's a good one. So again, obviously I know it sounds cliche, but it's your kids, right? Like I look at my kids, I'm like, what are we leaving them? So, working in the energy storage space, it's a good place to work. You feel good. You're trying to make things better in terms of keeping the grid cleaner, keeping the grid affordable, keeping the lights on. So you do it for the next generation, which is what kind of keeps me motivated. And what I love about energy storage right now is that it's politically neutral. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, everyone's seeming to use storage and understand its value. So to keep it at that level, like that's a motivation. Can we make sure that no matter government's going to change, they're going to come and go, but they're all going to see storage as an important tool that needs to be used. So again, those are the kind of things that keep me going.
Yeah, it's good. I love that. Final question. Any just final words of wisdom, parting thoughts, anything else you want to leave the audience with?
Listen, we're always on a grower association. If you're interested in the sector and you're in the energy space, look us up. Join us. There's over 100. We keep growing every day. It's so exciting, and it'd be great to have you a part of it, part of the conversation, helping us kind of navigate what's coming up next. So it'd be great to have you, great part of the Energy Storage Canada community.
Yeah, awesome. With that, we'll wrap up. But Justin, thank you for joining us and sharing such an insightful look at energy storage in Canada. To our listeners, thank you for being with us today. You'll find links in the show notes to the association and all that as well. You can find all those links in the show notes where you can learn more about Justin's work and Energy Storage Canada. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the show, leave us a rating, and share the episode with a friend or colleague. We'll see you next time.
This episode of Green Giants, Titans of Renewable Energy, was brought to you by Lead Group Search. If you enjoyed today's discussion and are looking to recruit top talent for your company, or find your next career opportunity in the renewable energy sector, visit leadgroupsearch.com. Let's continue driving the future of clean energy together. Until next time, keep pushing toward a greener future.